about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a public speaker, pilot, and of course, adventurer. No other than Miss Danielle Allen.
Thank you for having me on here. I'm super excited to talk about my book, my favorite book, and yeah, a bit more about me. Yes, I am a pilot. I have a commercial rating as well as my certified flight instructor. I also am a nuclear engineering student. So I like to say that um, I like my infrastructure, like nuclear energy, very boring, but I like my hobbies, like flying, very interesting and very dangerous.
Indeed. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Danielle. And welcome to Book 101 Review. And today, let's talk about something inspiring. Beyond obvious burnout, what subtitle or subtle emotional or physical signals that suggest it's time to explore?
Hmm. I think boredom is a good signal. If whenever you're getting bored with what you're doing, it's always a good time to try and figure out new things to do. Sometimes that could be a new hobby, but I think for me, I really crave learning and knowledge. And not to say that I had learned everything. My previous job before becoming a nuclear engineering student, I was a firefighter paramedic. So, not to say that I learned everything about being a firefighter, but I felt like there was so much more to learn within the nuclear energy space. And so, for me, it was just how much more could I learn that would really interest me and keep me interested.
Very well said, Miss Danelle. Very well said. And how can someone audit whether their current role actively conflicts with their core values versus merely lacking excitement?
Ooh, that is a good one. I think you have to know what your core values are.
Yes.
The first part about core values is they're unique to you and they really shouldn't change. And so I think a lot of people who are in roles that find that their values are conflicted with the job that they have or the environment that they have. For me, I've been in roles where I'm not necessarily thrilled by the way in which the values are portrayed. I think the first thing that comes up to me is I feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I can't quite put my finger on why that is. I take a long time to process, so I have to like write things down. Uh, so after I kind of feel uncomfortable, I go home and I unpack. I'm like, okay, what was making me uncomfortable today? And when I write, that will help kind of jog what's been going on. And I find that usually when there's a mismatch in values, it's because there has been something emotionally that I kind of pick up on first, where there's a deviation. I would say knowing the extent of how separate those two values are, it would be a big one for me. So one of the values that I hold pretty high up is treating people well, treating all people well. And so anytime I have been in circumstances or at work where people are not treating people well, that's when my red flag goes up and I'm like, no, that is that is not something I prefer to do. I like to treat everybody with kindness and compassion.
Is persistent anxiety about the upcoming work week or a reliable indicator, or it can be mass other issues?
Ooh, yeah. I think the the I think they call them Sunday scaries.
Yes.
Anytime you're feeling anxiety or anticipatory of the upcoming work week. I think it can be both sometimes. Sometimes you're just, you know, that you're going to have to use and expend a lot of energy within the work week. So it's already pre tiring to your brain. I think other times, if you feel completely avoidant, that would be something that, um, for me at least, when I enjoy working, I enjoy problem solving. So if I'm not looking forward to working or problem solving, that's typically when I understand, okay, this is more than anxiety. This might be something else, which is why I always kind of go back to my own values.
Miss Danelle, how do you distinguish a temporary plateau from a role that genuinely no longer challenges or develops you?
I think they look the same. A plateau versus, an unchallenging role. I think for me, I'm always looking for challenges. So that's kind of how my brain is wired. I'm always looking to do something that invigorates me, whether it's learning how to fly, starting nuclear engineering school, becoming a firefighter. I used to be a war and conflict zone researcher in the Middle East. And so for me, a plateau can either look like one of two things. A plateau being that you're just resting. And I think that's perfectly acceptable. You don't have to be doing everything all the time. You could just be flat, and that's okay. Another plateau is if you're wanting to kind of learn more and do more, but there's nowhere for you to go that can satisfy what you're doing. So that was actually, I found myself in the latter portion of that where I knew I was going to be at a plateau because where I wanted to go was not aligned with my current path.
Definitely. And what questions help someone evaluate what they are missing by staying put?
Yeah. Questions. I would say the first one that I kind of think of is, what do you want to do? I think we sometimes maybe put too much emphasis on how much you're going to get paid or what the pay looks like or the benefits, but realistically, what do you want to do with your life is the core value. I think that, at least for me, staying put was so against my core belief, because of the fact that I wanted to do so much more. My long term goal is to try and apply to NASA to become an astronaut. So staying put meant that I would not be able to fulfill my dream. And so I think that's probably the first thing is what do you want to do and what does your purpose looks like? The second thing is, do you have the time and capability of, taking that leap? I think sometimes, people might rush into, oh, I hate my job. I hate what I'm doing. I have to change. Do you financially have the capability of stepping away from your current job to go pursue your dream? If you don't, I would say maybe stay there a little longer to earn more cash, a little more of a cushion, because it sometimes it puts a lot more pressure on you to succeed. You can't be as creative. So I would say being able to have a financial safety net to be able to kind of go pursue your dream. And the third one is, for this one, I would say if the consequences of staying put, for you, for your family, for your sense of self. Uh, since staying put is very safe for a lot of people, but if you want to go pursue your dreams and follow your passion or whatever, insert thing here, what does staying put do for you? If it means that you're going to continuously be really depressed and sad about the way that your life is playing out, then yeah, I would say leave your job. But if you're okay with that, then maybe you don't need a career change. Maybe you need a new hobby. I'm the queen of hobbies. need to volunteer, maybe go to a food bank, a homeless shelter, an animal shelter. There's so many different more ways to feel fulfilled in your life that don't necessarily require leaving your job.
Yes. Speaking of leaving your job, how crucial is testing a new direction before fully committing, like projects, freelancing, or shadowing? What's your framework?
Shadowing, definitely. I would say talk to people. I send out a bunch of emails. Email people, call them if they give you if you they give you their number, and say, "Hey, I'm so and so. I'm looking to do what you do. Can I meet you for coffee, or can I sit in your office?" I counsel a lot of high schoolers, and that's the first thing I tell high schoolers is if you want to become a veterinarian, don't just go online and think about, and Google how to become a veterinarian. Go call one. There's probably one in your neighborhood. And uh, it works for adults as well. For me, before I decided that I wanted to be a pilot, I said I should probably go fly a bit with some in smaller aircrafts. Everybody's been on like a big plane, but if you've never been on a single engine plane before, it's you and the other pilot sitting shoulder to shoulder. It's a very close cockpit. So if you're claustrophobic, if you get nauseous or seasick, it's probably not a good idea to, change into that career field. So I would say definitely try and talk to as many people as possible. And that way you can start to understand whether or not you like that new role.
Definitely. Learn more, people. Learn more that craft. And Miss Danielle, as a public speaker, pilot, and adventurer, what are your short term and long term goals?
Long term, I always like to start with long term. I would like to land on the moon.
Oh,
I know that
yes.
sounds always pretty fun, but yeah, I think being able to set up a lunar base sounds really cool to me, but I really enjoy the applications of what that would mean for whatever country or globally for us to land on the moon. That means we have the capability of deploying energy, food, water systems anywhere in the world. And so when I think about, building on the moon, I think also about how we can start building for societies that are in our country. And so that's kind of the biggest thing that I think about right now. It's one of the reasons why I'm studying nuclear engineering. And so I am a nuclear engineering student. I would like to, expand the way that we think about our energy systems. And so short term, I would like to get my master's in nuclear engineering, as well as the podcast that I have called Naked Nuclear, where we strip down nuclear energy and technology. One of the reasons I would like to do those things is that we consume globally so much energy, but we never think about where it comes from. We just turn on our lights, turn on our oven, turn on the dishwasher. We turn all these power things on, and we never think about what is my role and impact into how I need that energy and what would happen if that energy was not there when I needed it.
Interesting, Miss Danielle. I'm looking forward for more success and good luck to your goals. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a podcast host, public speaker, pilot, or adventurer, or become
Start
a
doing.
nuclear energy?
Yeah, or nuclear energy. I would say start doing stuff. I think oftentimes when I'm talking specifically to students, sometimes they get really stuck thinking about what they want to do next. And for me, I don't really think too much. I probably should think a little bit more, but I don't think too much. I just start doing things. And I, from doing them, see what I'm interested in, what actually is fascinating to me, and what I maybe want to avoid. I have friends who are secretaries and executive assistants, and they work in office settings. They have a traditional 9 to 5 job. I could not do that. And I'm so impressed by them because they can do that. and that's how their brain works. But if you put me in their role, I would probably fail. If you flip the table or you flip the cards and you put them in my role, they would not do well either. I like adventure and adrenaline and high stakes problem solving. And so I think that's one of the things that I think people who are considering doing these things, you're going to have to do it afraid. For me, public speaking comes very naturally. However, I'm really bad at networking in person, one on one. And so I sometimes get sweaty arms and sweaty hands and I get nervous, but I'm not going to let that nervousness affect my idea of what I want to do.
Well, thank you for your advice, Miss Danielle. And can you recommend a book that influenced your journey?
Yeah, I would say one of the books that I've read now a couple times, I think there's two or three times, is called Of Water and the Spirit. So this book is by Malidoma Patrice Some. He's from Burkina Faso, and the story is of him being kidnapped as a child, escaping his kidnappers, coming back into his tribe, being a little bit of an outcast from his tribe, becoming initiated, and then going back out into the global setting, back into larger universities. And so, one of the reasons why I really enjoy that book is because, one, when you are a career changer or you are somebody who likes to adventure, oftentimes you're going to find yourself in spaces where your world looks a little bit different from other people's world. So if you say, "Hey, I'm going to quit my job and go live out of a bus for, 3 years," a lot of people will say that's a really weird thing to do. And one of the reasons I like this book is because it really illustrates throughout the entirety of the book how much fear the main character, the author, has, but he still manages to kind of do what he's meant to do and find his purpose.
Thank you for that recommended book, Miss Danielle, and I hope people will read it and they will empower for sure. And is there ever a perfect time? What actionable milestone indicate go now versus wait and prepare longer?
Mm. I think go now is really when there's an opportunity in front of you that is kind of like handed out on a platter. I think that's usually when I'm like, go, go, go. I think when you need to wait is typically when you might find yourself with not all of the information, where you need more information. For me, when before I wanted to become a pilot, I just had the idea of, the pilots that we see flying big planes in the airport. That was my idea. I had no idea about all of the other different types of pilots, helicopter pilots, crop dusting and applications, aerial firefighting pilots. And so before I kind of jumped into becoming a pilot, I said, wait, I should probably do more research because I only have one picture in my brain of what I think this is. And so I should talk to more people to really learn what it actually truly is.
How about Miss Danelle? How can someone craft a compelling narrative explaining their pivot to potential employers or networks without sounding scattered?
Yeah. I always work on this with myself depending on, who I'm pitching to. But I also have worked with mentors to help me because sometimes when I write down my resume and I have somebody look at it, they kind of look at it like this makes no sense. But the nice thing is with those resumes, with yourself, the through line is you. You are the thing that connects each one of these things together. Now, for me, when I look at what I've done, I see a pattern. For me, I like problem solving, and I like my problem solving in critical systems and in high stakes situations. And so, when I was a war and conflict researcher, I was in war zones. When I was a firefighter, I was in burning buildings, and now as I'm a nuclear engineering student, I'm helping build um, really heavily regulated critical infrastructure. And so there's all these different things that they look completely different. But what I like doing is I like finding solutions for problems that have high consequences. And so what happens if we don't get it right? So that's how I look at it. But for somebody else, sit down with all of your different jobs, all the roles you've taken, even if they're roles for money. Yeah, I only wanted to join this because I thought I'd get more money. Even if that's the case, there's still an underlying pattern, and it's helpful for you to learn what that pattern is.
Yes, pattern indeed. There's always a pattern. And who are the essential allies, like mentors, connectors, or cheerleaders needed during a transition, and how do you find them?
Yeah, right now I've been really, really successful on LinkedIn. That's one platform that I would recommend for people to start asking. If you're looking into a new career, literally type in that career in LinkedIn, look down and find people who are in your area. Ask them out if they can get a coffee. I think networking, we make it really complicated sometimes, but at the end of the day, people are people. And most of the time, people are really, really willing to help you. For me, I found mentors through another one is a lot of career organizations. So career organizations like flying organizations. For me as an engineering student, the American Nuclear Society, they have a mentorship program. I got matched with a mentor a couple days ago. And so there's all of these different opportunities and resources out there, but you have to start looking for them. And so for me, as I was looking to switch into trying to become an astronaut, I found that I could talk to my best friend's stepdad. He's a pilot. I found that I joined a aviation community and I got a mentor who was an F-16 pilot. I started sending emails out and managed to have the president of the American Nuclear Society be one of my mentors. And so it was really great being able to get a lot of feedback from another set of eyes to look at what I'm doing and say, hey, maybe you don't want to do that class. Maybe you want to do this class instead. And so mentors are really helpful in kind of shaping the decision making process and tree that you have in front of you to something that's more narrow and more suitable for you.
Miss Danelle, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course, my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 in its fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in its fourth season, as well as my Movie 101 review and Music 101. Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Danelle, what reframes help people detach from past investments like time, degrees, or status when considering a radical shift?
That's a really great question. Hmm. I would say, whenever you think about the life that you've lived to date and you see it as, I've wasted so much time, you weren't wasting time. You were collecting data. It was data collection. You observe that if you worked a really terrible job for 4 years, you observe that
Mhm.
over that 4 years, you really hated that job. It was horrible. And so now what you have is a data set of things that you don't like to do. And so the next opportunity that comes to you, you can take that data set and say, hey, I remember that I didn't like the fact that my boss was really micromanaging me. And that could be a question when you begin that career pivot to a new job interview. What is your management style? And if they say we, really like to make sure everybody's on them, if it sounds like micromanaging, that might not be the role for you. And so I think there, even for myself, there is always these times that come up where I'm like, oh man, I wasted so much time, studying this when I could have been studying that. But in reality, I was just learning something different. And I think when people start to reframe that idea of it's not time wasted, it was time observed, that's usually when people can start to move on from the past and pursue their goals more efficiently.
Miss Danielle Allen, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom today. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your podcast, your projects, or advocacy that you're doing right now?
Of course, I would say for anybody who lives in a place where there's lights on, there's power, go to my check out my podcast called nakednuclear.com. We talk about all things nuclear energy related. Otherwise, I would say learn how your cities work. Learn anything about them that could really help you when it comes to shaping the policies around how you want to live. That's one of the biggest things that I'm focusing on right now is creating boring infrastructure that we don't have to think about. So that's where you can find us on our website www.nakednuclear.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Danielle Allen because if you support her, more and more and more empowering episodes for the podcast itself, more and more empowering advocacy to come, and for sure, more and more naked nuclear breakthrough will come. So, Miss Danielle, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Danielle. And it was great. We have the same name, but it was great to have chat with you.
Yes, more to come, people. See you soon. I hope one day, Miss Danielle, that you will